So according to the current BLS statistics for pharmacists, opportunities for pharmacists are dwindling. Right now, the current job outlook for the next 10 years is about -3%, which led me to think about different career opportunities for pharmacists. And one of the interesting theories I've been thinking about during my shower thoughts is this. Does it make sense for a pharmacist to do a physician assistant program after your PharmD? Today's video, we're going to be covering the financial costs for someone that is considering a PA program, the break-even point, and also the job opportunities available for PharmDs and PAs. So if you're interested in this, make sure to watch this video. Hey, if you're new to this channel, my name is Kevin. I'm actually a former pharmacist, YouTuber, and entrepreneur as well. And on this channel, we explore the people, the strategies, the tools that help us live a more happier, productive, kick-ass life. So if you're into productivity, entrepreneurship, or personal development, hey, consider subscribing to this channel. But today, we're talking about the topic of, is physician assistant programs worth it for pharmacists? So I actually started thinking about this topic after I shot my why pharmacy isn't a good career anymore updated video. If you haven't seen that video, make sure to check it out in the cards. But in that video, I really talk about how the opportunities for pharmacists are dwindling. If you take a look at the Bureau of Labor statistics, right now it shows a -3% decline in the job market as well over the next 10 years. And there's also a negative employment change of -10,000 jobs for pharmacists. So right now, it's not looking too hot for pharmacy. So what are the options for pharmacists? So many pharmacists are considering non-traditional roles or considering leaving the industry altogether. Many pharmacists who are on this channel, a lot of them ask, how do I use my healthcare or PharmD experience for a different job? While I don't really agree with this approach of fitting your degree into a career, the fact is a lot of pharmacists are looking to leverage their experience and knowledge for another career altogether. I've seen videos on people considering doing a MD degree or becoming a physician after pharmacy school, but I thought, hey, let's kind of do something a little bit different. Let's cover PA for a second, because physician assistants, there's a growing opportunity, which we'll see in a second when we break down statistics. But a lot of my physician assistant friends are really, really happy. In fact, they're some of the happiest people I know that are in healthcare. So I thought it'd be fun to just answer the question, hey, does it make sense for a PharmD to pursue a physician assistant master's degree? And as we break down this question, I'll give you a systematic way to kind of think about the realities and expectations of going down a new career like this. Chances are, if you're like myself when I was a pharmacist, maybe you're looking for a career that is more fulfilling, that pays the bills and impacts people as well. Because I think a lot of us who go down to pharmacy, yes, the money is good, but I think a lot of us went in to make sure that we impacted the healthcare system as well. Because believe it or not, pharmacy wasn't like it is right now. If you ask any older pharmacists around 2006, a lot of these pharmacists, they felt this was rated one of the best jobs out there because a lot of them felt very fulfilled, it paid the bills and impacted people. But if you're looking at pharmacy around 2021, right around this time this video was shot, we're seeing a lot of new grads having harder times finding a job, getting adequate hours, and job fulfillment just seems lacking within pharmacy. In fact, there's this new term that I saw, and they're calling it the mass pharmacy exodus, kind of like the California exodus during the COVID pandemic. The truth is, when I was a pharmacist, I was actually seriously considering an option like this because I wanted to get out of community pharmacy and look for something else. And maybe you guys have thought about doing something like this or something like residency after you practice a few years in community. So we're going to look at a few factors. If you want to skip around, I also have timestamps below with descriptions of where my sources are from. But we're going to look at three things today. We're going to look at the financial costs of a physician assistant program. We're going to look at job opportunities for physician assistants and pharmacists. We're going to look for the financial break-even point for doing a crazy plan like this. Most importantly, I'll give you my personal recommendation about what I think is best. Now, keep in mind, everybody's situation is a little different. So if you don't think that my recommendation is good, hey, don't take it. It's just food for thought. And I think this is a time for you just to think a little bit more critically about your career. But either way, make sure you stick to the end so you can understand what the hell am I talking about when I'm giving out my personal recommendation. I'll give you a little more context. Okay, sound good? Let's dive into it. All right, so the first step is to break down the financial cost of something like a physician assistant program. While in an ideal world, we would not have to worry about money, truth is education ain't cheap, especially higher education as well. For example, in pharmacy, the average school loan is about $180K for a graduate program as well. Now, what that pretty much means is like you get out of school and you see a bill for like $2,000 plus per month. You might see this number and you're like, crap, the pressure's on. I gotta make money. I gotta pay off my school loans as quickly as possible. And you're probably wondering, hey, can I actually afford something like PA school? So what we're going to do right now is compare the cost of pharmacy school at the moment and then tack on something like the average physician assistant program as well. Keep in mind, these numbers are a rough idea, but it'll give us a good idea about the average cost of both PA school and pharmacy school as well. Keep in mind, there's a lot of different factors, whether a program's in-state or not, whether it's private as well, and if you have undergrad loans. And just like pharmacy, there are accelerated programs for PAs as well. But let's just focus on the grad programs at the moment. So let's look at pharmacy first. According to NerdWallet, the average pharmacy loan when you compare pharmacy school is about $180K according to NerdWallet. This is actually roughly consistent to a 2014 article by the American Journal of Pharmaceutical Education on pharmacy debt and return on investment of a pharmacy education, which set a range about $150 to $180K, which honestly, since that time, I believe that pharmacy school tuitions have actually increased since then. I'll leave a link below if you want to check that out. Okay, so let's assume pharmacy school is about $180K. Now that we know how much a pharmacy program costs, how much does a PA or physician assistant program cost as well? According to the NCCPA statistical report, there was a really great chart outlining the debt of 5,613 students. And the average debt for a PA program was about $120K as well. But that might include undergrad as well. But according to PA Life, they basically looked at the data from these various organizations. And basically they were saying that for a public school, it could be $50K. And for others, like a private school, can range up to $90K as well. And the average program for a PA program is about 27 months. All right. So again, PA is about $90K. Pharmacy school is about $180K. So you're looking to pay about $270K total for doing a PA program and a PharmD program as well. All right, second thing, let's look at the job market opportunities for physician assistants versus pharmacists. And there's three things that we're going to look at here. We're going to look at the job outlook for physician assistants, opportunities for growth for pharmacists, and specific roles for PharmD PA roles as well. The reason why we're going to look at the opportunities for growth for pharmacists versus job outlook for PA is we have to assess the cost benefit as well and know all our options at the moment. Again, when we're looking at something like the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it says that you can get paid $130,000, but that is 100% contingent whether you can find a job, right? Otherwise, who's going to pay you, right? So at this point, let's kind of compare the job opportunities for pharmacy versus PA. So one of the first areas I looked at was something like the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So if we compare the job market compared to pharmacists, actually physician assistants has a 31% projected job growth in the next 10 years. Compare this to the -3% of pharmacy at the moment. So if we are comparing both of these, we can tell that physician assistants have a higher chance for growth, especially in the job market. So you don't have to worry about jobs as much at the moment. Now, could it tank like pharmacy? Absolutely, but this is the data that we're working with at the moment. Who knows? It still might end up like pharmacy, but at the moment, based on the Association of American Medical Colleges, there is right now a primary care gap at the moment of 105,000 providers by 2030. That means careers like NPs and PAs can fill that gap, unlike pharmacy. Believe it or not, these actual provider roles are actually putting doctors or physicians out of jobs because there's decreased costs as well. And so they can get the similar quality of care without paying the same hefty fees or same operational costs as something like a physician, right? That's the job projection for something like a PA. Now let's dive into opportunities for similar roles as PAs for pharmacists. So for many, many years, we've actually had collaborative practice programs as well. But recently, there's expanding roles like advanced practice pharmacists, like in California. Not all states have these, but believe it or not, at one point I was actually offered to get trained up at one for one of the job positions that I got offered. This obviously varies from state to state, but it might be applicable into something like your state. All right, so you're wondering, what does something like an advanced practice pharmacist look like? Well, there's a few things. According to California, and keep in mind this is California, your state might or might not have this, but they're allowed to do patient assessments, order, interpret all drug therapy related tests, refer patients to other providers, participate in the evaluation and management of diseases and health conditions in collaboration with other providers. In addition, these pharmacists can actually initiate, adjust, modify, and discontinue drug therapy as well. So essentially, you're pretty much doing very similar work to a PA as well. Now, is this something that you just submit an application for? Well, not quite. Not really. There are a few caveats and there's a few things that you need to do to become licensed. So let's pull something from California. First, you need to earn a practice-based certification in a relevant area of practice from an organization recognized by the Accreditation Council for Pharmacy Education or National Commission for Certifying Agencies. Second thing is you need to have a postgraduate residency through an accredited postgraduate institution where at least 50% of the experience involves providing direct patient care services with interdisciplinary healthcare teams. Last one is provided 1,500 hours of clinical experience under a collaborative practice agreement or protocol to patients within 10 years of application where clinical experience includes initiating, adjusting, modifying, or discontinuing drug therapy at patients. There's also a part where they say any experience used to satisfy one of these three criteria above may not be used to satisfy another three criteria as well. And you need to meet two of the three criteria. So that's really important. This is for California, and that's how you get qualified for a career like this. So it can take you quite a while to perhaps get this if you're coming something like from community pharmacy. All right, so now that we know the opportunities for pharmacists, we know the opportunities for PAs, what are the specific roles that you can get for PA PharmDs? Because if you don't know this, there's actually a few programs out there that have PA PharmD programs. And I'm planning to shoot another video to see if this sort of program is worth it, a PA PharmD program. But this was very interesting. But keep in mind, this wasn't a very scientific approach. This is more anecdotal. But what I quickly did was I went on LinkedIn. I looked for people who were doing PA PharmD. And most of the people that I saw that had a PharmD PA were either practicing one or the other. And there was more of a trend of seeing people who were practicing PA over pharmacy as well. I'm not surprised. As I was trying to dive into more different programs, there were very few roles for PharmDs and PAs other than something like academia, which led me to this. So I started diving down the rabbit hole of things and I went to the most legit source. It's called Reddit. And this person actually came up with a really good point on Reddit. They said, I can't put you in two places at once. You're either a PA or pharmacist full-time and perhaps the other PRN. So it doesn't really save me on payroll, right? And so that brings up a really good point as well. I even went onto some PowerPoints with PharmD PA programs. None of the presentations I saw provided a really good reason why. They just said it would open up job opportunities, but they didn't really list what opportunities were available as well. If you guys know of any specific opportunities other than academia, please comment below, but I just couldn't find them. So based off what I've saw so far, it really goes to show you that these are really two different roles. You have PA or pharmacy and you can only really pick one. All right, which leads me to believe it's probably not worth it to do a PA program to do a PharmD PA type of role because they're probably very far and few and there's very little difference, if any. All right, so let's go into step 3. Let's say you still really want to do a PA program. Hey, no problem. Let's go into the financial break-even point as well. So in order to break down the financial break-even point, I want to assume a few things. Let's first of all assume like a 6% interest rate. And then let's also assume that we're paying this off in 10 years as well, right? And so there are 3 different columns we're looking at. We're looking at pharmacy school plus in-state physician assistant program. The second thing we're going to be looking at is a PharmD and private PA program. And the third thing we're going to look at is if you don't go to PA school at all. Now, for pharmacy school, we're going to take the average, which is going to be 180,000. And then for in-state programs are going to be 50,000. And then the private PA program will be 90,000. So let's break these each step by step so you can calculate your monthly payments as well. All right, so for pharmacy school with an in-state PA program, it's going to run you about $230K, which breaks down into monthly payments of pretty much $2,500, right? Keep this in mind because we're going to be breaking down the cash flows of a career in like something like PA as well. For pharmacy school with a private physician assistant program, we're looking at a total of $270,000 and looking at almost a $3,000 monthly payment for the next 10 years as well. And then for pharmacy alone, we're looking at a total of $180,000, which breaks down into almost $2,000 per month for the next 10 years. All right, so let's see if these costs are really sustainable. So let's take a look at, again, something like BLS, and let's take a look at the average pay in California, which is about $113,000 from BLS for a physician assistant. Now, keep in mind, this will vary state to state, but the important thing to use is a bank rate student loan calculator. In California, the average pay for a PA is about $118K. Now, this is going to vary from state to state. You can look it up on the BLS website, but basically what we're going to be doing is taking this number, plug it into a take-home calculator so we can see how much you make after taxes. And so after taxes, you're making about $71,000 or about $5,925 per month as a PA. So if you were to do something like PA school, you would have to sacrifice at least 40 to 50% of your paycheck to pay this school loan off by itself. If you're to do a private program, it would leave you about $3,000 to actually live as well. Now, we're assuming that you're staying in the same role, but let's say if you stay a PA for the remainder of your career, that's a lot of money that you're sacrificing as well. So if it's something that you really want to do, hey, be my guest. Consider doing that. But let's kind of dive into the last point. Is it actually worth it? And this is where my recommendations are going to come in. Before I give my recommendations, here's some factors to really consider. One, that's a lot of money to be investing back into your education every single month for just a small return as well. If you ever lose your job or anything like that, you're at higher risk because you're still liable for that amount. The second thing is, assuming that you have a pharmacy career, you might be better investing that money into areas like the market and potentially retiring earlier than expected, which leads me to these three options as well. So if your state has something like an advanced practice pharmacy role, hey, it might be worth finding a pharmacy that is willing to train you like they were willing to train me as well. Back in 2018, I actually found a role, but declined it. And just know that that's a lot of time to be making up, especially if you don't have a residency. It will be a grind. And if you want to consider something like residency, it might open opportunities for you. Notice I said might because there's no promises because this is a relatively new role. And keep in mind, most employers would probably be more familiar and probably more comfortable hiring something like MP or PA to fill this gap already. But hey, the benefit of this is that you don't have to pay more tuition into this. The second thing to consider is, hey, you know what, you're not a huge fan of pharmacy, but you just want to suck it up. Hey, it might be worth it to just invest that extra money into a market and retiring early as well. And the third option is, hey, you really want to do PA, you don't want to do a residency or anything like that. You can apply to a PA program, rebrand yourself, take the chance, and then have potentially bank on having more PA opportunities open up for you. Now, the reason why each one of these options depends is because there's all relative amount of risk. Keep in mind, if you do apply to PA school, it's still very, very competitive as well. My PA friend, she was telling me one of her programs had like a insanely low acceptance rate. I think her program was like 3%. Don't quote me on that, but that's what she told me as well. So I know that this topic was quite complex and there's a lot of individual factors to see if something is worth it or not. It's difficult. And what I recommend is that you speak to some of your PA friends and what the specific role that you want to dive into, and see if they're happy. Because at the end of the day, here's the truth. It doesn't matter how much money you have, time is very short. And so if you're going to be a lot happier in this career, hey, it might actually be worth it. And you might get promoted to something that's higher paying as well. But hey, it's not an easy decision. But if you are considering staying in pharmacy, chances are you're gonna like my video on why pharmacy is not worth it anymore. Don't be misled by the title. In that, I talk about the current changes in pharmacy and how it's changed over the last 14 to 15 years as well. It might inspire you to trek on a new path or to stay in pharmacy as well. Another video that you might like is if you are more interested in remote life and you want to be a little bit more entrepreneurial. The next thing I would probably recommend is this video on how I transitioned into something like digital marketing consulting. I have a video over here that explaining how I transitioned from pharmacy into this remote life that I live right now. Speaking about transitioning as well, I also have a video on what high ticket sales is actually like, the pros and cons. It's an industry of inbound closing where you're essentially a freelance consultant. But be careful here, it's very hard. There's a lot of get rich quick type of things over here, but you could potentially use your pharmacy experience to transition into something like pharma sales, or use the soft skills to go full-time into a high ticket inbound closer. Finally, if you want to stay connected, make sure to subscribe to my newsletter where I send out every Sunday tips on productivity, entrepreneurship, and personal development. You can find it at refugeehustle.com/join. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace. Whoosh.